Blink by Malcolm Gladwell is a psychology book mainly focusing on the topic of thin slicing. Thin slicing is explained through studies that bring different real-world psychological examples together. The idea of thin slicing is our ability as people to notice and discover the unconscious patterns that come up in our day-to-day lives. Throughout the novel, we have picked 4 different stories that best reflect thin slicing. We have picked Vic Braden, Coke vs. Pepsi, Kenna, and Warren Harding. The infamous tennis coach Vic Braden discovered that he could always predict when a player would double fault. What was interesting about Braden's ability to predict double faults is that he couldn't explain how he did it. Vic Braden excels as a tennis coach in part because he's in touch with his own adaptive unconscious. Braden can thin slice a tennis match to evaluate in the blink of an eye whether or not a player will double fault. New Coke is a notorious example of an unsuccessful product. It was one of the biggest flops in the history of business. But for Gladwell, New Coke is also an example of the pitfalls of polling and audience testing. After ads of blind taste testers preferring Pepsi over Coke, Coke did their own research into what they could do to make their drink better. After all the research indicated that Coca-Cola Company should redesign their soda, the resulting product, New Coke, wasn't popular at all. The test audience claimed that they wanted New Coke, but clearly the public did not. The musician Kenna grew up in Virginia Beach. His family was well educated and he grew up watching CNN and playing the piano. When Kenna was still a young man, he was discovered by a talent scout who referred him to Craig Kallman, the president of Atlantic Records. Kallman had a difficult job. He had to listen to 100 songs a day and choose 2 or 3 that might be hits. When Kallman heard Kenna's music, he was convinced that Kenna would be a huge star. Kallman sent Kenna to meet with the manager of the rock group U2, among many other important musicians and producers, but there was a problem. Even though Kenna was highly popular among producers, executives, and musicians, he didn't seem to appeal to actual listeners. Kenna's songs never tested well when it was played for a small sample audience. The audience didn't give him good marks. In 1899, 2 men had an important meeting. The first man was Harry Dodderly, a lawyer and a well-known political fixer, and the second was Warren Harding. Dodderly was impressed with Harding's charisma and handsome face. Indeed, he was so impressed that he suggested that Harding would make a great president. On paper, Harding didn't seem too presidential. He wasn't too smart, he'd had countless affairs with women, and he'd never distinguished himself as a politician. The only reason Harding continued to ascend in government were 1. Dodderly helped him, and 2. He looked like a great charismatic leader. Eventually, Harding ran for president, was elected, and became, according to most historians, one of the worst presidents in American history.
Who are you? Oh, don't worry about it. So I think you have potential. You have a look that I think is perfect for president.
Really?
Your nice long legs, your colorful shirt, your chain, and your ushanka. You just show a special glimmer.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just I
know some guys. I think I can make you president. Because I know some people.
I don't know. I mean, I like my job at the Senate and
I don't really like you with me up there, buddy. You make it to the top. Run this shit.
okay.
See you soon. It's gonna be a couple years, don't worry.